try to do here is to bring attention to an issue that, by and large, has stayed below the radar. Certainly, violence is well recognized. It is studied around the world, but the specific issue of sexual violence against children, as the title of the report suggests, tends to stay in the shadows. Most of these offenses happen privately in families and communities, and frankly, people don't really want to talk about this, yet we've estimated that there are at least 120 million children around the world who are victims. So we are trying to bring more attention to this issue and, frankly, put countries on the spot so that they will be held accountable for the laws, the regulations, and the conditions within their country. Something more needs to be done, and this is a significant awareness-raising exercise.
So given that the lack of information and openness about it, are countries that have been assessed on par with legislation defining sexual abuse and exploitation of children?
We've looked at a number of areas around the world. Interestingly, many countries are now beginning to pass the right kinds of laws and regulations. That's important. If you can't be bothered with at least putting in place the right legal frameworks, then you're not even taking the most fundamental steps. So we're seeing more of that. Countries are doing the basics. What we are not seeing as much is the follow-through, the enforcement, the dedication of resources. So countries are beginning to take positive steps, but clearly much, much more needs to be done.
And I see that according to the report, boys are being overlooked, especially in 21 of the 40 countries. Why is that?
It's important to understand that, of course, those who are most often victimized are girls. That you would understand that would make sense. However, boys are really left out. This is a case where boys just are not mentioned in the laws. This is a difficult issue, but often child-specific rape laws only specifically refer to girls and not to boys. So boys tend to be overlooked because girls are, admittedly, most often the victims. But that doesn't mean, of course, that boys should not be addressed. Boys need to be protected as much. And I think the reason for that is that girls and women are most often viewed as being victims, and that's true, but we can't exclude boys here, and this is one of our major findings. We looked at 40 countries. The laws around girls are generally in place. The laws around boys are not, and that needs to be fixed.
How are countries dealing with, obviously, with the advancement of the internet? There is then the expansion of broadband, but also the fact that there is the dark web. How are countries dealing with these eventualities?
One of the things we've discovered is for all of the benefits of broadband, and clearly broadband is very helpful in terms of education and health and people finding jobs, but there is an absolute strong correlation, a strong relationship between the introduction or the increase in broadband and then incidents of child abuse or exploitation. So unfortunately, once a country begins to accelerate, once a country begins to get more access to the broadband, then usually sexual abuse and violence against children increase for the simple reason that the internet becomes an enabler, unfortunately, of contacts there. So the internet, this is the dark side of the internet.
Okay, just a final question. What we've seen here in South Africa is increasingly children or young people are themselves even abusing each other through social media. And I'm asking if this is a phenomenon that you've seen in other countries.
It most certainly is. It's one of the more disturbing aspects of this is that often older children, teenagers, people around 20, 21 years old, even younger than that, are themselves, as you suggested, abusing much younger children. It is not just happening in South Africa. We see it in many countries around the world as well. It makes this issue particularly difficult and particularly pernicious because in this case, children are not only the victims, but often the abusers themselves. So yes, that's happening all around the world.
Thank you so much for speaking to us there. He is Economist Intelligence Unit, one of the people who was working on that. That there is Leo Abruzzese. Thank you very much for speaking.